Yeah, and so we're here to talk about data, the different ways like data can like help us. We just wanted to like demystify a bit of the concept besides talking about all the data that us and Catalyst and like, collaboration like we get and we can use. We also wanted to do a bit of pragmatic what is data because we feel like every time we talk about it, there is so much fear and it's so obscure like data analysis. What does it mean? So with this workshop, we wanted to like kill like two birds with one stone and do both things. So first, next slide, we just wanted to like show you like how it's gonna be today's session. It's gonna be a bit of who we are, just so you guys know like our credentials, like why we're talking about this. Then what is data analysis? Why it's so important? The very simple data workshop, hot topics we're seeing right now, the experts, where we're gonna have Yao for rural census, who is amazing at getting like deep voice people from rural areas, and Rana from Willow Reading, and then talk a bit about the People's Report 2022, which is definitely coming. First on who we are, next slide. We first started as an NGO, and we were a very happy NGO called By the Ballot. That's how sort of I joined. I was doing a master's in London, and I learned about these very cool kids that were revolutionizing the way you could register to vote. Because for some of the ones that were not from the UK, the notion of registering to vote is quite weird. Like for us in Spain, the moment you're 18, automatically you're in the list. But in England, you do have to register, which is something a lot of people miss, especially people from different minorities. So we went and did the first Can5 voter advice application, which was highly successful. And then we did a national voter registration drive, which was more than almost 500,000, which is a world record. We did this with like campaigns. We projected this massive how you register at the Big Ben, which was amazing. We also did this sort of like stalls outside like famous clubs in London, like Ministry of Sounds. And when people were like done with partying, we were there with our ballot like, hey, this was fun. You know what's also fun? Being involved in your future. And through like different things, we were very young. We were having a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but thanks to that, we really connected with people, and we did this. Michael Sani, our CEO, called his like Ahsoka Fellowship, and that's how we got into like really this business. Because at the beginning, it was like it started off a classroom, and it wasn't that much of like, oh, this is our plan. But then it sort of solidified. We got a shout out from Barack Obama, which Mike is very, very happy about, and he shows the video every time he comes to everyone. We started doing turn-ups campaigns, which is something that we do every December, sort of like a recap of the year, like how you feel, how is your mental health, how do you feel about the environment, politics. Of course, some of these started in 2016, and 2016 was Brexit related. And then it came pandemic related, because we go from hot topic to hot topic. But it was a very nice pause to see like how society was changing and how perceptions were changing. And then in 2018, that's how Playbird Talk came to be as we know it now, because at some point we just couldn't keep dealing with grants, even an NGO, or some clients that like the moment like the data was out, they didn't like it as much. I'm not gonna name people, but it's there. So we decided to go independent and to start sort of like a social for-profit business. And that's how you know us now. That's also when we joined Catalyst. Was it like, no, was it, when was like Catalyst got turned together? Was it at that time? I remember like they joined. And then the next slide is about how we have created this impact. We have reached more than 600 people around the world. And what's more important to us as well, in more than 15 languages, which like led 73% of the people to talk in their own native language. I'm sure you guys remember, especially like Debbie, who was like heavily involved last People's Report we did. Well, the other like big like SDG survey was only done in 2 languages, English and German. And there we were with 43 languages. And thanks to the Catalyst members who like so graciously decided to translate it to their own languages so they could like pass into the communities. So through all these years, we have created like strategy for global organizations. We've done recommendations to the European Union Social Action Plan on green economy, which sounds not the most fun, but it was because we got these 4 really fun influencers from the UK and they brought their networks. So you can imagine in this very closeted EU event, we just got all these influencers with all these networks being like, literally like, yo, what's this? So the conversation was very different and it was very fun. And like, we did get to some conclusions to what like young people want from green economy. Because although me being like doing research, I do love academia and reports. Quite frankly, most of the time, we do miss how to talk to people that are just not into that. So that was very refreshing. We did this engagement campaign for public health across Africa, which was very important because it was regarding vaccine hesitancy. And we were with our hypothesis that of like, oh, people are gonna think they don't believe in the virus, or they don't believe in the vaccine. And actually the outcomes were that people, don't worry. It was so nice in you. People were like, I think I have to pay for the vaccine. And then I heard that you get a bit sick after taking it and I cannot take 2-3 days out from work. So that's how people could then do the campaigns, because for this we partnered with like local people, do the campaigns being like, no, you don't have to pay, it's free. And also it's your right to take 2-3 days off at like 6 days if that happens. We've been at COP27, we've been at the UN General Assemblies. We supported many social enterprises with strategic decisions. And this last point is one of the last campaigns we did, that we doing a happiness curriculum with like different partners to support the mental well-being of children and young people. And it's been beautiful. It's been for now, the pilot in 8 countries, very diverse, very different schools, private, public, religious, all of those. But it is truly beautiful and mesmerizing to see that even through such like big like cultural like differences, the notion that like children have these days around happiness and mental health is just insane. Like that, I think I was 20 the first time I heard someone talking about mental health, and now you have like 8-year-olds being like, yes, I want to learn how to be happy in school because I do believe it can be learned. And I want my teachers and I want the adults around me to give me the tools, which was great. And also we have these questions of like, do you think adults should take it too? And the shadiness of children being like, yes, they should. They definitely should, which was amazing. Then we go like next slide of what is data analysis. And I wanted to ask you here, like, what does it first comes to your mind when you think of data analysis? We are a very small group, so make me pick.
Were you asking us?
Yep.
Interpreting the meaning of data and what its implications are, looking for patterns and emerging themes, and using it to predict and to understand causation.
Indeed, that's kind of basically it. Data analysis is the process of analyzing data in different formats. It can come in a very ugly, messy, different like spreadsheets and ways. And basically what you need to do is to clean it, to transform it, and to make it and to put it in a format that is consistent so you can study it. And you can also start seeing patterns and details when you have it in the same format. For example, very simple like example, if you have dates and someone has put it in the US way and someone has put in like I think how we do it in Europe, that it goes like the other way. Or like someone has like written like 26th of June 2000 this. The moment you put it all together in the same like way, you can see who replied to something and who said something in the same dates, and start seeing like, or perhaps that month, I don't know, someone was talking about Roland Garros, so everyone was feeling like happy that the player have won, something like that. So that's basically seeing those patterns, seeing those details. That was research is about. And then, of course, making hypotheses and proving them. And then the next slide is like, why we think data analysis is so important. Don't worry, come on, whatever you need. To make informed decisions. I think nowadays, everyone has an opinion about everything, which also leads to data will back up your argument. We all have opinions, and we're overloaded with data. And data simply, it's logical and it's evidence. It's not only anecdotal evidence, it's an actual like figure-driven evidence. It will get the results you want. Imagine you have put a strategy in your business and you want to see how it works. Then you have to track it. It will help you find solutions to your problems, because you will be able to know what the problems were in the first place. For example, I was just like, we're just helping someone from another company, and they have these teams that work very well, and these are 5 teams that would invest the communication. So we went back and we were like, okay, what are the channels of communications you're using? And we realized that the most efficient team were using just Slack on the open public channels, and they were trying not to talk anything on private, and they have them very, very organized. While the others were using WhatsApp, never a good idea. Plenty of emails, plenty of threads emails, and then Slack in all its forms. So therefore, the communication was getting like super messy. Then the next slide is also know what you're doing well. Once you know, okay, it's because they're using Slack in this public way, in this open way, then you can replicate it and you can use it for the rest of your teams. And you can keep track of all of these and know when things are going well, when things are going bad, whether you need to tweak, change your strategy. And kind of also what like brings us here is to back up your arguments. For systems advocacy, it is one thing to say, oh, I believe you need to give me this grant because it's the right thing to do and because people are suffering. And there's another thing to bring like figures, and it's like, these 1,000 people have said this. It is more powerful, and it brings you like, you're not only representing your ideas, you're representing an entire community. Then the next slide, we wanted to do this little like workshop on how to get data right, because so many people from Catalyst have asked us, have approached us at some point, asking us how we do data and how to do research, with the $1 million question that is how to do it when you don't have the resources for it. So we wanted to take advantage of the opportunity that Catalyst is given, like the platform that we're given today, to do this very short workshop on data. So next slide. This is the title of our workshop, so no one gets scared. Please don't be afraid of scared of like what data means. I'm not gonna make statements because I don't have the figures to prove it, but I do not believe people know what they're talking about when they talk about data most of the time. It is very secure and it is everywhere these days. Like just from my health app, I get more stuff that I don't ever know how I'm gonna use. So here we just wanted to give you like simple steps that you can follow to do a bit of data yourself. So the first thing, next slide, would be to have a plan, to get a basic overview of the data. And if you can spot any details manually, for example, you have a spreadsheet and there's one column or 2 columns are completely empty, and it turns out it's a demographic. So you're like, I wonder what that is. Is it because in this region, group, people are very aware of their privacy? Is it because the survey was quite sensitive and maybe they won't feel as safe? Of course, that's not something that you could immediately know by like looking at this, but it's just starting seeing these details and like start thinking why it could be. Then you have to define your objectives and and know also whether the data you have can answer this. Then make your plan and just get some broad ideas, and labels, structure the data, and then find these patterns that we were talking about. That then these details inspire, and that's what leads to research. Well, this, we always put this example, is like cooking a meal. Because, tell me, Deepa.
Can I just ask, because when you're saying get a basic overview of the data and try spotting any details, is this in an existing program? How do we think about data, like from a collaboration point of view, as members are thinking about coming together for us on a specific, to solve a specific problem or to specific action? The role of, they may not have any data, but they want to define a problem or understand deeply the problem. Does that apply equally then in terms of get the basic overview of data, or is this, do you see what I mean? So like,
yeah, well, I think having no data is data in itself. It is very telling if something has not been researched, there's no information on that topic whatsoever. It's like, why is this happening? What this is telling us?
No, I meant more in a to provide the proof point why the collaboration or why the activity is needed in the first place. So kind of like a depth of understanding and using data in that way as well.
Isn't that something that Catalyst does in a very informal way already though? Because I feel like so many times it's asked on the chat and people are like, yeah, I'm very interested, or we talk to like different people and that's how we come together. Is not how, for example, learning for collaborations were like created?
Yeah, I mean when it's about a specific thing. So for example, if there is a collaboration that's looking at, trying to think off the top of my head, we're looking at, if you're looking at climate change, for example, in and its impacts in a particular area, using kind of trying to find out trying to accumulate data to be able to understand trends in different locations, which will then influence what the activity or the collaborative activity could or should be, as well as data on the progress of whatever that collaboration decides to do, but kind of data in deeply understanding the problem, I guess, is where I'm asking. And like, and therefore, how do you look at what data is useful data?
Well, the cleaning and the getting the useful data is usually the lengthiest, hardest bit, because there is just so much stuff out there. Definitely, I do believe for the examples that you're saying, like if you want to know climate, you should read about all that stuff. And although we all not know everything, you should not go and make and write reports and talk like representing a collective that you have no idea on. That would be my advice in general. Just always go with the locals and with the people that are affected. And in any case, you can be the speaker by representing them. But yes, that prior by doing a bit of research is definitely the hardest bit, because then it's all there. It's just a matter of like reading, watching, listening, and interpreting it. But this election is like, what is, which is also like a very important question. What is useful data? What is meaningful data? The next slide is about what systems do we use. Us personally, we do have like data scientists and we have our own like algorithms, and then we use Power BI. But for the sake of like having for everyone's data, we would say that Excel, just like go with an Excel course, is one of the handiest skills ever. It could not be just because you're like in a data-driven company, but just in general, just Excel could like save your life in many ways. And this could easily be learned through YouTube videos, which is kind of like how we learned a bit. And then at the end, we're gonna show a slide with like different free resources for people. And then we also think that it depends. If you're really into it and it's just more than a one-time thing doing a spreadsheet, maybe you're interested in being a researcher, who's like the people who get all those different reports and like reads and interprets data analysis, who collects data from multiple sources and performs the analysis on it. Or a data scientist, that's when you have very large like data set and you want to create a model to structure all this data. Next slide, we're talking about how to know when a finding is significant. For us, we will say is one of two things. Whether you're finding the answers that you're looking for, let's say you have this hypothesis or you have this question. For us, with Catalyst People's Report, we wanted to know who had like these services nearby. Hey, Cameron, that's very interesting. Do you want to tell us like what you were doing as a data analyst?
When I was a little kid, way before the internet, my aspiration was to be a systems analyst, to look at data, analyze it, and then draw conclusions and make recommendations. That was like when I was 10. So it's always been an interest.
And is it something that you're kind of pursuing now? Like, it's more like, that's interesting, I read a bit.
Yeah, I do it at the moment mainly in the context of doing evaluations, program evaluation.
Of course. Kind of like KPIs and what you do for that. So yeah, for like knowing when a finding is significant, it's either one or the next slide, which is a bit of trust your gut. We try not to have many hypotheses when we're starting a project because you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, you can have an idea, but for example, for us, for People's Report, it was, well, I mean, not as shocking, but like a third of women in Western Europe say they wouldn't rely on authorities. I was like, that's interesting. Or I remember this other project we did with young people in Portugal, which we thought they were going to talk about. Well, like, because they were mainly for like people that have been like doing families that have migrated to Portugal. So we thought it was going to be about that. And then we were very surprised that most of the stuff that came up is that they were very worried and very annoyed as well that because of the pandemic, their neighborhoods were filled with litter and they were filled with like masks, disposable masks. And they wanted the government to do something or for someone to give them the tools to like do like a collective and get together and clean the streets themselves. That was like their main issue. So it's a bit of that. You can have your hypothesis, you can try to understand and like try to see what would they want. But then you get surprises. That's also why we always emphasize that we use the platform and we just sort of be a speaker, like to give voice to those that usually otherwise wouldn't get to talk in platform like this, but in no way we would talk for them. Then we get like next slides. How do you visualize the data? Those who have worked with us know that we are very funky and we know our our graphs so much. We have in-house graphic design team, but these, well, not exactly this. This we just wanted to show you like different ways that we'll be like showing stuff, but all sort of graphs can be created in Excel as well. So, and also you can have like free, like in Tableau or like things like other like visualizing tools. You can create these as well if you're interested. Or like the next slide, that's also how we're representing things. We would say that you know your audiences, so you know in which formats they will like it. And also always think how to make it invited and inclusive for all. Yeah, thanks, Yao. I love your like visualizations as well from data. But for us, we're that visual because, for example, Mike Sunny, our CEO, he is very dyslexic and he's not big on reading. And well, he does have a lot of trouble reading. So for him, it was very important that people like him were not excluded from knowing data. So that's how all these like things came to be. And also while every time that we can, we do a lot of like videos as well. Cause for us, like we get into like more voiceovers as well. So people with different disabilities could really, because I don't know, if you cannot read, whether because you don't know or whether because you have a vision impairment, you also should be getting all this data. So that hence the videos. And then the last one would be how to put impactful presentations together. The next slide. And for us, it's a bit about storytelling. In the free resources and the next slide, you have some videos as well. It's about being honest, because it is so easy to tweak data to say whatever you wanted to say. So that's something to be very mindful of. It could be whether how you're asking about it, it could be loaded, or it could be just simply that you're asking one question. So you're saying, oh, people are talking about this. And like, no, people are talking about this because it was the only thing you asked them, not because it's the thing that truly worries them. We'll say, always make it simple. It is great when you have learned something and you have so much to say and you want to say it all. It's amazing, but try to make it simple. Try to make it for everyone. And then always respect and honor your players. They're giving you the time. They're giving you, in many instances, their life experiences. So do honor that. And I don't know, like for you guys that like, I don't know, Cameron, that do like this program evaluation, do you also use this sort of like storytelling to tell like the companies how is it going for them? How's this program going? Do you use this approach?
In terms of data collection and analysis, I use mixed methods, both qualitative and quantitative. And in terms of representation back to the stakeholders of what are the findings and also recommendations, again, it's sort of like a mixed method. So it's important to have the data, credibility, and also for the 5% of people who actually wanted to drive into that. But having the simple principles backed up with a couple of anecdotes, supplemented by data visualization, is the most persuasive way to deliver the conclusions and the summary of the data.
True. Next slide is for everyone who's interested, like some free resources around data analysis, storytelling, and data visualization. This is quite for beginners. So, but it's just a way to like show that you don't have to pay, you don't have, I mean, if you can't, you have the time and the resources, by all means, go to one of those boot camps that sound like a lot of fun and a lot of work. But if not, you can start with just a YouTube video. And now, Julia, I hope you're okay with this. We have Yao from Rural Census here, and he has to leave somewhat soon. So I was thinking maybe we can go to his slide. And Yao is amazing, not only at a personal level, but at a professional level. Rural Census is this incredible company, and they reach people that literally, I think it's just them who's reaching them. And they do it in such a cool, fun way. And they also have amazing visuals. So, Yao, if you want to tell us a bit about yourself and your company.
Yes, thank you so much, Elena. It's so nice, and it's really nice to see my photo with all the flags around, and it feels really international. So thank you. And thank you, everyone. And I really enjoyed this conversation. And Elena, thank you for this, because I think what we're doing here is really making things simple and accessible. It's a lot of times there is an idea that to work with data, to collect, to analyze, to visualize, you need to be like a superstar data analyst, and it's not the case. Like, we can really use a lot of simple tools to do stuff. So thank you. I think I'll take 10 minutes just to present what we do. And specifically, Elena invited me today to talk about challenges in collecting data in rural areas. So I don't know how many here had experiences or challenges there, but I'll ask you in a moment. So, rural census, that's the name of our social enterprise. A little bit about us. We are 10 people in the company from 8 different nationalities, everyone from different parts of the world. Our average age is 31, almost 32. Basically, I like to say that we are young enough to think outside the box, but old enough to already did some mistakes. So we are modest in our approach. And a lot of us met at the University of Cambridge in the place it's called the Center for Sustainable Development, which brings people from all kinds of backgrounds to address complicated and complex problems and try to solve them. So this is how we started. We started as a research in the university. And our end goal is to create a world where every decision, doesn't matter if it's in business, in aid, or in policy, is led by what people really care about. And for that, our mission, our specific role, is to unlock the potential of emerging markets, but by making community data accessible, affordable, and ethical. So this is about us. But today, I don't want to talk too much about us. I want to take us through some of the challenges in collecting data in rural settings. So I wrote here some of the challenges that we are aware of, we're facing. First of all, biases and the power dynamics in data collection. Also, a lot of things, there's low literacy, so writing stuff, asking surveys or asking people to write or to read is not feasible. It's also a lot in remote locations. How do you even get there? You know, if you want to collect data in a lot of remote places. There's a language barrier. Many people speak very unique dialects. You can have in one region, in Kenya, like people speaking a lot of mother tongues, and same in India and other places, and sharing the results back. So it's not always possible to share a link back with people because they might not have a smartphone or an internet. So how do you communicate the results back? Before I continue, I want to open the floor to the people here, and I saw that people have a lot of experience. Maybe you want to add another barrier, another challenge that is not here, but you experience or you know of.
I would not add another barrier, but I wish for us, sharing the results back. This has been one of the main things.
Absolutely.
I'd add not knowing why the information's been collected. So before you get to the sharing, do people really understand how that, what that information is going to be used for and why it's important for themselves rather than other people gathering information about them?
Really good point.
Greetings everybody from Kenya and Africa. I think technology is also a challenge. The use of technology because of inclusion and the digital divide. Thank you.
Exactly. Really good point, Howie. Look, a lot of the data collection is done on smartphones, but what if no one has smartphone in the community you want to talk about, or, you know, it's a really good point. Anyone wants to add?
I'll jump in. There are completely different paradigms about what are valid sources of knowledge. So we're, in looking at data, we're sort of taking as given the Western sort of scientific way of thinking, and that if there can be data collected and there's an analysis and a conclusion, then that's it. But yet a very significant proportion of the world don't give credence to that. They think, so what? You just, I don't know if it's they don't understand it or they fear it because they don't understand it, but then they will be more persuaded if their auntie says something and then that's it. So that's one of the challenges I find is it's not just about people understanding the data, but even accepting that this whole process itself is a valid means by which knowledge can be created.
So you're talking, Cameron, from a very meta perspective, like how do we look in general about this process?
Well, it's very practical. It's just very quick example. I was on local council and there had been exhaustive studies and reports. And one of the councillors just said, yeah, but I think this. And that was what, I've heard this from a couple of people and that was what their decision making was based on. So I was like, what about all of this data? It doesn't,
Amazing.
And in the end, it's not, people aren't logical, they're psychological.
Yeah, I really love this example, Cameron, because you're bringing something that is like the elephant in the room every time you talk about data, which is, okay, we can bring the best data in the world, but what if people don't listen to the data? They listen to their auntie or their neighbor that they spoke to. Really, really good point. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time to talk about it now, but Elena, maybe we should have another workshop about that, about actionalizing data and all that. Really good point. Okay, so we talked about the digital divide, how we said, we talked about Deepa, the issues around sharing the results back, that is a big deal, right? So I'm going to touch with some of them. The purpose of this is just to be a teaser for us to converse. So at any point, feel free to share your knowledge. Okay, so biases and the power dynamics. So let's talk a little bit about that. We all know, I looked for a lot for what photo to put here. And we all know those photos of someone like wearing a suit and really nice clothes, comes to a rural community, to a village, and asks questions or gives a survey. And there is a really big issue because no matter how nice this person can be, there is always the expectation of the person answering the question that they need to answer in a certain way. And it's sometimes hard to predict what is a certain bias that is happening, because sometimes people think, okay, this guy has money and he might give money to our community, so I should be as the poorest person I can be and really say I really have no hope and everything is really bad in my life. On the other hand, I might think this person is wanting to support only the successful people, so I need to see how I'm really happy and really successful. So it's really hard once you have different personas from the outside coming to really get an honest answers to any question. And we can think also about ourselves that when people ask us questions, we will answer differently if it's a policeman, if it's our friend, or if it's a judge or a neighbor. Every person gets different. And I think we can all admit that the most honest answer, the most honest conversation we'll have with people that we know, that we feel they are similar to us, where we know. So this is a little bit talking already about some solutions and mitigations. But I like to also hear from you if you want to share anything about this problem, how you experience it, about these biases when it comes to data collection in power dynamics. Anyone wants to share?
I think for us with Catalyst, with the People's Report, one of the keys to like people talking to us was the social entrepreneurs from the area. So they knew them. So it's what Deepa was saying, that why should I do this? Why should I give you my time? It's because this trusted person is telling you, give me these 5 minutes and it's gonna be worth something.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, really good point.
I think also donor bias. So people thinking that they want to tell you what you want to hear because there is financial dependency or financial implications or incentives associated with the answers that were being given.
Absolutely, exactly. Yeah, people think that whatever I'll say will affect the results. And so what is the best result I can get and what answer I need to get that result? If it's money, if it's development, if it's someone to support me in some way or another. Absolutely. Okay. So it says low literacy here, the title, but actually what I mean is generally language barriers and language issues. So in a rural setting, there will be lots of people might be in a distance of 1-2 kilometers, people might be speaking different languages. And some languages are not even written, so there is no written form to some languages. And how do you manage? You want to translate them, but how do you manage when you want to practically work in multiple regions? It becomes a really big overhead that a lot of organizations eventually choose not to do it, or to do really simplified surveys that people just need to give numbers for stuff. So what is kind of the way to address that? If I wanted to sample a region that has 50 or even more languages, and so how do even I get there? So does anyone have an idea or reflection of that?
Yeah, let me also just jump in, because this is a very interesting question, because in a country like Kenya, where I come from, there are almost around 42 tribes. And also we are dealing with, those are ethnicities, and also we're dealing with not less than almost around 50 languages. So this becomes a big problem. But what has come out very clearly is the language of work. Mm-hmm. And also the use of interpreters and the translators in the processes. How do you bring in that? Because that is what now brings queries. But we lose data. You lose data because at times when someone is translating to someone.
Thank you. Yeah, and definitely. I can tell you, we are working now with Kenya, and we definitely see the need in addressing this issue. Does anyone else want to share anything about this? Okay, so just a little bit about some of the things we're doing in rural census in the organization I work with. We incorporate a network of online translators. So basically, it's once you make this problem or this challenge an opportunity of saying, okay, there are lots of people that are speaking those many local dialects. And from each of these communities, there are at least some people that have access to internet or to a smartphone. We can create job opportunities, and those job opportunities become really interesting stuff for the community to be able to translate any language and both transcribe it and translate it in a distributed manner. For some of the big languages, you can also use AI. Like if I'm in Uganda, so Kiswahili I can use AI, but not for the more smaller spoken languages. And what's good about it is that we're leveraging local assets that the community has. Suddenly someone that their only talent is that they speak their mother tongue, this has become an asset that gives them job opportunities and ability to work and to support a lot of organizations that want to hear about what happens to their community. So this is one thing that we have developed about this ability to streamline that translation. Remote location. So a little bit about remote locations. How do you get there? So some data collection requires trained data collectors. You want the scientists, the social scientists that will get to the place and will ask the questions in the right way and will interpret it. And transportation is expensive. Sometimes the scientist needs to travel from Europe or even from the capital city to the place, and it's not very cost effective, or it's very expensive. So eventually only the really rich organizations can afford it. But how do you do it? How do you make it more accessible, more simple? And any thoughts about that?
I would like to know why would you say that some data collection requires trained data collectors?
That's a really good point. So I'll play devil advocate and I'll say that, you know, people study in the university for many years social science and how to do mixed methods research and how to ask questions in a certain way. So we need people with specific qualifications to do those things, to ask those questions. And if these people are not around, they need to fly, need to go on a business class plane and get to the place and ask the questions. Does anyone want to contradict me?
No, I think what you're saying is that you're saying that the deeper issues of the cities, the deeper issues are found within the communities. And some of these communities do not have access. So like, how do you get those real issues that women want to talk about that are affecting children? Thank you.
Exactly. And I think, so I think today, definitely we need social scientists and we need the research to help us design methods of survey and so on. But eventually the person living in a community knows best what's happening there. And they're in the best position to tell about it. And what I want to argue today, or what I want to promote today, is the sense of, instead of looking at data collection as an extraction exercise that someone from the outside needs to come in and pull information, let's look at it as a push exercise when people from the community has the ability to speak up, to speak what they think is important, what they think happens. But that means to change the mindset a little bit and to train local people that are already there just in the basics of what it takes to become a data collector. And we saw that how you mentioned that we have the digital issue, that many people in some communities, there's actually almost zero penetration of mobile phones or internet. But in Kenya and in many places in the world, their penetration is there. So it's enough to have a few people that have the smartphone that can get access, and they can be the channel for to allow the community to speak up. And for that, we do need to invest in training to make sure these people know how to deal with challenging issues that come up or how to deal with more sensitive stuff. But it's definitely possible. And again, let's look at these challenges as an opportunity, and let's look at the assets that happen on the local level. Okay, language barrier, we already talked about. Duplicate slide. And the last thing that I think one of the last points I want to share is the power of letting people express themselves. And once we say we don't want to extract information, we want to allow people to express what they care about, then the whole traditional survey of, I want to ask you 16 questions, all of them are yes, no, or you need to give me a number, they kind of change the shift. And instead, I want to allow the people to tell their story in their own words. And that requires a different set of approach, which moves away from more quantitative surveys to more qualitative surveys of ability to share information in a very free way. And with some basic technology like smartphone, we can allow that to happen, and we can actually record what people are saying and take their story in their own words, in their own language, and use that as our main source of data. In rural census, I'm just going to say in 2 words, we developed technology specifically for that. We're able to take voice recordings from any type, any language, and any type of data. If it's a voice interview, if it's a call center and stuff like that, and transform them to community insights about what people care about, their challenges, their impacts, their sentiment, and so on. And I want to show you one example before I go. And this is an interesting exercise we did. We just asked people, what in your life do you need more of? We showed them a lot of pictures, just random pictures from day-to-day life. And we asked them, what do you need more of? And we let our systems kind of analyze that. And this very open, very qualitative approach. And we use all kinds of data science tools to quantify the results. I can show, if I have another minute, I'll just show here actually how it looks in real life. So basically, this is actually what people said. This was in English, but similarly, it can be in any local language. And we can see what people said. We can see the main thing people said, and we can see education. This is what people say. This is the main thing I'm missing in my life. It was a community here in Catalyst. And we can also see the analysis of like what topics come up. Again, this is some kind of data analysis, really simple, we can employ. And when we click on something, a lot of people, for example, said freedom of expression. So when we click on it, we can see a lot of what people said about having a voice. This is what they need more in their life. This is what they're missing. And so that's really interesting. This is just one sample of technology of how we can use it. So to summarize my key things, I think recommendation is empower the people that are already there. Don't look on solutions from the outside. Share results with interviews. We didn't get to that, even though Deepa, you asked about that, but I didn't have enough time. And allow people to express themselves freely. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. If you want to talk about anything, here are my details. I'm part of Catalyst. And yeah, and thank you very much. Thank you, Elena.
Thanks so much, Joe. I love your summary. I love like your emphasis on like not doing data abstraction. And yes, as you can all see, they have an amazing technology. So it's like, guys, I admire so much the work you do.
Thank you.
And that actualizing data workshop, definitely very good idea. You told me you had to go, so like you left your like contact details there. By all means, if anyone needs anything, he is as good as his job as he is lovely replying to emails. And thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. I'm sorry I have to leave soon, but enjoy the rest of the workshop.
Thanks so much. And now, if Rana, sorry, because we have to like, we started a bit late because we have some tech issues and we didn't have like people coming in. So we thought it was gonna be like a very private meeting. And so I told Rana if she could speak like almost 30 minutes ago. So thanks so much for your patience. Well, I think all of you know Rana. I think she goes without presentation.
Great, thank you very much, Elena, for arranging this and all Catalyst, and nice to meet all the familiar faces here. I will speak briefly about our experience, and I think, and I'm going to build on the previous speaker, but in a more, let's say, defined way. And coming from, not from the field of research, but more from as a social entrepreneur myself, right? Because most of us are social entrepreneurs and we're thinking, what can we do? As a social entrepreneur, and I started my program, We Love Reading, a number of years ago, and I was learning as I was doing it, right? It wasn't that I had a course on social entrepreneurship and then applied the course, or that I met somebody and asked that person what to do. I was coming from the heart on, I identified a challenge in my community and I thought, okay, how can I solve it? And I developed a program on how to solve it. But then came my second half, which is I'm a scientist. I'm a professor of molecular cell biology. So I do a lot of research, but my research is all genetics and biology and counting proteins and genes and things like that. But that scientific approach, that critical thinking, that scientific method is core to what I do. So I wanted, as We Love Reading became more successful, I wanted to measure the impact of We Love Reading, okay? As any social entrepreneur, they're curious to see this impact, to measure it, to have a tangible thing that they can share with the world, not just a good feeling, like I know I'm saving people, I know people are benefiting, but actually how do I show it to the world? And so, and I came at it as in a very hardcore scientific way. But then what I came to realize, and I'm sharing my story just so that people can relate to the different parts of the story where they are in this journey. Whether they are people like the previous speaker who actually are not social entrepreneurs, but data scientists, or people who are social entrepreneurs. So when I started, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do research, and I'm thinking of research in a very scientific way. And as I met other practitioners, not social entrepreneurs, but actually international NGOs who run programs, and again, we have a problem with those international NGOs, all of us, but they were the first ones you encounter, myself coming from the global south in Jordan, that these are the people who are implementing programs that are similar to mine. So as I approached them to learn how they are measuring their impact, and they talk about quote unquote research, I was thinking, wow, these guys do research. And then I realized what they were producing were just a monitoring and evaluation report. There was a few numbers of statistics and KPIs, a new word I learned, which is not scientific. It's more of a jargon in the social, in the nonprofit world or the humanitarian development world. And like I said, first I was like, wow, look at all this research that they keep talking about. And when I delved deeper and discovered what it was, that it's just simple reporting of some statistics that they do, gathering data of how many trainings they did, or evaluating people's feelings before and after the training with no really scientific design. But it was taken as very serious. And these reports were quoted in the UN and used as policy reports and inform government. So I was really skeptical. And I thought, wow, if that's research, wow, we could do a ton of that, but I don't believe in it, because anybody can write numbers and say we've trained, we've done, and so on. But how does that really reflect what people are going through? And really, is that impact, quote unquote, again, what is that impact and how real it is and true? And is it sustainable? So with all that in mind, I decided, you know what, I don't care what the international NGOs are doing in the humanitarian development world. I want to do it the right way. I am the scientist. And even if I don't have that knowledge, I'm going to go learn what to do. And I think that's the mindset that we all have to have, is that we may ask and consult and learn, but ultimately we know better our communities, we know better our solutions, and we know better the way we want to solve them. And even if that means you're disrupting the whole system, well, that's what we are all about. We're going to disrupt the system to do it better, because that's ultimately our goal. We're not there as a scientist to be promoted, because that has its own challenges. And we're not there to get money, as all the international and humanitarian development people are doing. We're there because we really care, right? So from that premise, I thought, I'm going to do what I think is right. And so what I did is, I did two things. I decided that I would measure impact. Yes, I need to cater to this funder, and I need to use the jargon of these international NGOs so they know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to limit it to the minimum, because I really don't believe in all those numbers. And I'm not going to waste my time and the time of my volunteers on just collecting numbers that mean really nothing, and exhaust and overburden my volunteers. So I decided on a few. And I'm just going to give my example. So for We Love Reading, we would only, okay, how many people took the training? How many people are reading aloud? How many kids are coming? That's it. And I resisted any more collection of data. And my argument was, I'm not going to overburden my volunteers, because I don't pay my volunteers. These people are doing it because they want to, not because they have to. But I know that's not enough, right? But I came in with my, what's the word with my killer kind of evidence, is that I'm going to do proper, not your kind of research in humanitarian development. I'm going to do proper research. But it's not about everyone who participates. We do deep dives of proper randomized control trials on the people on the program and the people who use it, and prove the principle. So I've proven the principle, and then I have a few KPIs to go, and the combination of both with the storytelling, so that's the third component, is what I present to the world. So it's a new way of doing things. It's much more efficient in terms of money. It's more real, and it's much more higher quality. So collecting KPIs is pretty easy because they're very few. But when I came to the hardcore research, again, this is not my field. I'm a molecular biologist, and this is the field, in my case, for education. It's about social education scientist, or psychosocial scientist, or psychology, and so on. So what I did is I invited colleagues from around the world in different universities to come and study the impact of my program. So I was giving them a free ride of a program that they could evaluate. Of course, scientists don't do that at the spur of the moment. They're not just waiting for you. It's about courting them for a few years, and they know about you. And then when the right time comes for them and for their PhD student and for their funding, they come back to you. So many of those scientists, like I said, it takes 2 or 3 years, but you build that relationship, and then they come to you, and you become the source for them for data collection, which they will love, because you want it as much as they want. So it's not that they are coming to you, begging you to work with them, and you really don't care. It's about a mutual partnership of working together. And that's what happened. That's why we actually produce a lot of randomized control trials, which we publish in peer-reviewed journals, and then we simplify for a policy report or something like that that we can share with governments or international NGOs, and then later to cycle back to the people themselves that we work with. All right. Now, and we collect the stories. Right. So the people we work with, they are not beneficiaries. They don't report to us. We don't track them. And I'm using all these words that I always hear from international NGOs that I hate, because that puts that power dynamics. No, we learn from them. They are the experts, right? They are leading, and we are so excited that they can share with us their knowledge. That's the approach we take. And so to them, it's like, who doesn't like to talk about themselves? Who doesn't like to talk about what they've done? So they share freely the stories because of that power dynamics of equality and partnership and community and human. And we have those, and we tell them, we incorporate every feedback they give us into the next training. And they see pictures of people who came before them giving advice and what to do. So it's that mindset, which was mentioned earlier by some of the people in the audience, about how people feel they belong, how people feel that this is them. And it's not a program designed by somebody, implemented and coming to measure. Now, the last point, and we have been very successful. And the reason, successful meaning successful in terms of impact, you know that, but we have been successful in the context of this workshop is that we are still able to get funding because our quality is so high. So people come to us and say, okay, Rana, we'll give you whatever you want. And I put my rules and I say, I'm not going to collect more than this. And they all agree because they came to me. I didn't go begging for them. UNICEF, for example, came to us a few years ago and said, here's $1 million. And they started putting KPIs on me. And I said, stop. These are my KPIs. This is how I measure. I do research and do this and this. If you put anything else on me, I cannot guarantee the results. So it's your turn. You don't want to guarantee the results? I'm free. I do whatever I want. Or you let me do what I want and I will guarantee the results. And of course, they back out and leave me alone. So it's about quality. And it's about being empowered because I'm from the people. So I'm not the person coming in to help the people. And so I'm weak and I want to please the funder. I am the people. I myself am Syrian Palestinian. And that's why I say, no, this is the only way it's going to work. But of course, what holds my back is my research, by the way. That's the backbone that nobody can say a word because most of them really don't get the research. They don't know what randomized control trial means and peer-reviewed publication. So that's the clincher, right? That tells them to back up, and they get excited because I put their name as a funder who's published academic research. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, which is when we do this very high quality academic research, how do we do it? And these are to some of the points that were mentioned by the speaker before me. First of all, when you do research, yes, I'm inviting researchers from around the world, from the best universities. So I work with Yale, with Harvard, Queen Mary University, and so on. But I also have local university professors from the region who speak the language, who know the culture. So I'm one of them, although I'm not I'm not the psychology professor, I'm the molecular biology professor, but the baseline of research approach is there. And so we have local expertise. And for somebody who says, I can't find somebody, well, you can go look for them because there may be many in diaspora. So yes, maybe I go to Myanmar and I don't find any scientists in Myanmar, but I'm sure you have somebody from Myanmar in the US. And one should actively search for them and engage them because that's and that person would be better than, with all due respect to an American or a British or a French person who wants to go study the region. But it's about teamwork, right? It's not about that I know better than them. It's about let's work together. You have some expertise and I have some expertise, and it's about equal dynamics. And again, I coach the professors in Jordan and say, hey, even if this professor is coming from Yale and Harvard with all the halo, you know better your community. So you stand up and say, no, wait a minute, I don't agree with this, or I agree with that. And it's about coaching as well to promote that feeling of confidence in your while learning at the same time, and having that sweet balance of being comfortable to lay bare what I don't know, and comfortable to say, no, this is something I'm sure about, and having that balance. And that comes with experience. So that's my team. So the team is scientists from inside and out. Then the people who collect the data are from the local people. And in my best case scenario, they are from, if I'm studying Syrian refugees, I get Syrian refugees to do the data collection as well. All right. And that way I raise the level of science awareness in the community itself, because I'm training them how to collect data and why I'm doing it. So my team is Syrian, Jordanian, who actually collect the data, and therefore they know everything inside and out. They're accepted by the community because they are the community. They can see any differences, nuances, or anything that's going wrong and report immediately, as well as, like I said, raising their own knowledge and experience and expertise for the future. Now, so that becomes my team. The people we do the studies on, and I don't want to use the word beneficiaries, subjects, whatever, all these are really wrong words. We need to come up with a whole jargon. Words matter. But the people we are studying, we don't study them. I go in and talk to the community, and I say, hey, I'm Syrian. I'm like you. We're going to evaluate this program, and we're going to see if it really works or not. Because if it doesn't work, we're going to fix it. And so I give them agency rather than saying, we're coming to you, we want to evaluate a program and see if it works on you. No, I'm giving them power and say, you're going to check if it works. And if it doesn't work, you're going to stop it and change it the way you want. Who doesn't say no to being part of that project, right? So we don't have attrition. Everybody comes on board and they point out things, and they help me get the data I want. Because, for example, we were evaluating a program run by Mercy Corps. We were invited to do that. And Mercy Corps, so this is the combination. We are the scientists who are doing it. Mercy Corps is an international NGO, and we wanted to do biomarkers, not just surveys, right? And part of that biomarkers, we're looking at hair cortisol, which reflects stress and anxiety. And we wanted to see if this program actually reduces it or not. Now, Mercy Corps was scared to do hair because they said, oh, they're going to think we're bad. I said, yeah, you're already acting guilty. If you really were part of the people, you wouldn't act guilty to start with. So I said, move out, you just don't interfere. And I talked to the families, I said, science says the best way to measure stress and anxiety, well, you could do a survey, right? But we all know we could answer that survey differently, whether we want to be honest or not, or I don't feel good today, or I do. How much does that really reflect reality? Not much. So let's go to science. So I talk about the science and say, but science is advanced and you actually can go under your skin and check your cortisol, which is a hormone. That will affect how stressed you are. And I said, but you guys, you got to help me. How are we going to measure this cortisol? You could take blood. Oh, nobody wants blood. All right, so forget about blood. What does science say? Oh, we could do saliva, but saliva is messy. You got to spit into it. Imagine spitting into a tube. And we tried it with all the families. Like, no. And we said, oh, guess what? We could do hair. If you take some hair, your cortisol is deposited in your hair and it grows as long as your hair. Everybody got excited. But I said, I have a problem. Will the kids let us cut hair? And the parents said, forget about, we'll get a haircutter, a barber, we'll have fun. And we did it when Mercy Corps was so scared to do it. So again, I'm just giving you an example of how we do research, this really hardcore, difficult research. It becomes a program of enrichment, enlightenment. And I'll end here by saying, and after we collect all the data, we actually go back into the community and share the data. And very rarely people do that. We go back and talk to the kids, say, look at this graph, your cortisol went down from your hair. And everybody's excited and they've learned. And we found out, for example, for this particular example, that Mercy Corps' program, which claimed to reduce stress and boost resilience, actually reduced stress, but did not boost resilience. And we found out the reason was it was designed in the West, by the West, and it was designed according to Western concept of resilience is built around an individual, when we found out that resilience is built around family and community. And so they redesigned their whole program as a result of that feedback. Cool. One last example is that when my team, who is Jordanian Syrian, were actually collecting the data, sitting for an hour, collecting all these trauma data that really traumatized the kids even more. My team said, Rana, could we end on a more positive tone? So because of their feedback, we created a whole new resilience tool that was created, validated, and tested in the community that's now online, everybody can use because of the feedback of my team. And so this fantastic equal partnership and community. And I just gave and I can share some articles we've written as an exemplar of how research should be done in terms of partnerships between scientists internationally, between international NGOs and local NGOs, between NGOs in general and academia. And how do we all work together to achieve the goal of helping people all around the world and setting best practices and tips on how to do things. So I'm going to stop there. And maybe I've went way beyond what Play Verto is talking about in terms of depth of research. But I think it's a combination of all of that and lessons learned that we can really disrupt the system as it is now in terms of measurement and start thinking of new ways of measurement that the funders will approve. I mean, which funder doesn't like peer-reviewed journal academia. Everybody does, right? It's fancy. And then you reduce those KPIs and you're building capacity of the people. So it's a new way of doing measurement. I'll stop there. If anybody has any questions, I'm here for a few minutes, and I'll put in my contact information and some links to those articles that speak about, best practices. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rana. You stole the show, and I'm very glad you did. That was, yeah, absolutely amazing. Yeah. Yeah, we're running a bit of like late on with all the things that have been happening. We just wanted to mention briefly People's Report 2022. We've contacted some of you already. We're ensuring funding for the next year. Well, the next People's Report. Last year we did it relying on your teams, and it was just volunteering effort, and it was incredible how we all came together. I'm sure some of you remember as well how we created the survey, how it was created, and then at a General Assembly Catalyst, they were like, no, not this, and then we started again. And the effort that the Catalyst member put in is honestly something I've never seen before. And this year, that's what we want to ensure funding, because we for next year, we want to do a play to earn. The people that we're talking to, the players, not the beneficiaries, never using that word ever again in my life. They deserve also the locals. Everyone should get paid for the work they're doing, and the organization should get paid for the work they're doing. So that's what we're doing now, and we will hopefully get in contact with you soon at the General Assembly somewhere for let you know more about this. Now, I don't know if you have any questions for me, for Rana, or anyone, just open discussion here. We'll share the presentation with you guys as well. There were some videos about different data we have gathered together with Catalyst and with Social Progress Imperative. So that will be shared, but I don't know if you wanted to discuss something before we say goodbye to each other. If no one wants to discuss, I would just like to make the best of Jason being here. Hey, Cameron.
The main takeaway for me is that the actual analysis of data is only half of data analysis, and that all of the social context is absolutely critical, and if ignored, then the data won't be used, or it won't even be collected.
So it kind of means that last bit, because there was this ambulance honking here.
Yeah, so I was just saying that it's often ignored, the social context and the cultural context of the collection and reporting back of data. So that's something that I've taken away from this, to put a lot more emphasis on making sure that it's contextualized, appropriate, and involves the participants in not just providing the data, but shaping how the data is collected and what it means, how it will be used.
Yeah, I think it's combining what Yao and Rana said. It's not extraction of data, it's actually enriching meaningful experience for every part involved to give agency to the people. Do we want to talk about formal education, if anyone wants to? Well, Jason is hosting a summit on data and video games very soon, New Zealand time, if anyone's interested. I'm sure that's gonna be amazing, and I'm gonna very gladly miss hours of sleep as well to be there. If that's it, very, very thank you for all of you coming. We share the presentation Rana, I mean, I know you don't like this sort of compliments, but you truly are an inspiration to everyone who can't spend some minutes with you. And same for everyone that has come. It's been amazing. And see you around in other meetings, in other learning for collaborations. And thanks again for Catalyst for like giving us these platforms and these networks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, take care, everyone.
Bye.
Maria.